Look, when you're starting a new colony, you've got a lot of problems. For Australia, one of the biggest was money. The British sent convicts and soldiers, but they didn't send a lot of cash. This was a huge issue. People needed to buy things. They needed to trade. How do you run an economy with no official coins? It's like trying to run my pawn shop with no cash register. You have to get creative. So, for a while, people used whatever they could get their hands on. They used foreign coins, promissory notes, and even rum as a form of currency. That's right, rum. It was called the rum core era for a reason. This system was a mess. Imagine trying to figure out the value of a Spanish dollar versus a Dutch guilder or an Indian rupee. It was chaotic. Plus, using rum for money leads to its own set of problems, as you can probably guess. The governor of the colony knew this couldn't last. A stable, reliable currency was essential for growth and order. The colony of New South Wales needed its own money, and it needed it fast. This wasn't just about convenience. It was about building a real, functioning society from the ground up. This need for a unique local currency is where the story of Australian coinage really begins. The first step was a brilliant, if a little desperate, idea. In 1812, Governor Lachlan Macquarie had a shipment of 40,000 Spanish silver dollars arrive. These were the 8 reals coins, famous worldwide, but he had a problem. He knew if he just released them, sailors and merchants would take them right out of the colony. The money would disappear before it even had a chance to circulate. He needed to make these coins uniquely Australian, so they would stay in Australia. His solution was simple but genius, and it created Australia's very first coins. It's a classic case of seeing a problem and finding a smart solution. This is what I love about history. It's all about problem solving. Governor Macquarie took a foreign coin and made it local. He hired a convicted forger named William Henschel to do the work. Think about that. A man who was sent to Australia for making fake money was now in charge of making real money. You can't make this stuff up. This act of ingenuity didn't just solve a currency crisis, it laid the foundation for a national identity. It was the first time Australia had something it could truly call its own money, a symbol of its unique place in the world. So what did Governor Macquarie do with those 40,000 Spanish silver dollars? He had William Henschel punch a hole right through the middle of each one. This was a clever move. The outer ring became a new coin called the Holy Dollar. It was valued at 5 shillings. The little piece that was punched out, the centre plug, wasn't thrown away. No way. That became another coin called the Dump. The Dump was valued at 15 pence. Right there, you have 2 coins created from one. You also increased the total number of coins in circulation, which was exactly what the colony needed. This process was brilliant for a few reasons. First, it physically marked the coins as Australian. They were no longer just Spanish dollars. They were holy dollars and dumps, unique to the colony of New South Wales. This made them pretty much useless anywhere else in the world. So, the problem of merchants taking the money out of the country was solved. The money stayed in Australia and circulated among the colonists. It was a closed-loop system, which is exactly what Macquarie wanted. It's a great example of thinking outside the box, or in this case, inside the coin. Making these coins was a tough job. Remember, this was the early 1800s. There were no high-tech machines. Henschel had to counterstamp each piece by hand. On the Holy Dollar, he stamped New South Wales 1813 on one side and 5 shillings on the other. The Dump was stamped with a crown and its value, 15 pence. Because they were handmade, each coin is a little different. That uniqueness is what makes them so valuable to collectors today. Finding a real Holy Dollar is like finding a treasure. It's one of the rarest and most sought-after pieces in Australian history. Today, these coins are legendary. A Holy Dollar is the holy grail for many Australian coin collectors. There are only about 300 Holy Dollars and maybe 1,000 dumps known to still exist. When one comes up for sale, it's a big deal and can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not just a piece of silver, it's a piece of history. It tells a story of survival, ingenuity, and the birth of a nation's economy. It's the kind of item that would make my jaw drop if it walked into the shop. It's more than just a coin, it's an artifact from Australia's very beginning. After the holy dollar and dump, Australia's currency situation got a little more organised. In 1825, the British government decided to establish the sterling silver standard throughout its empire. This meant that British silver coins, shillings, florins, crowns, became the official legal tender in Australia. For a while, Australia was just using standard British money. It did the job, but it didn't feel very Australian. It was like a kid wearing his older brother's hand-me-down clothes. They fit, but they weren't really his own. This lasted for decades, but the desire for a truly national coinage never went away. The big change finally happened in 1910, 9 years after Australia became an independent federation. The Australian government passed a law to create its own official coins. These new coins were based on the British system. They had the same names, sizes and weights. You had the threepence, sixpence, shilling and florin. They were also made of sterling silver, which is 92.5% silver. The big difference? The designs. For the first time, these coins had Australian symbols on them. It was a proud moment. Australia was finally putting its own stamp on its money. The front, or obverse, of these new coins featured the reigning British monarch. That was King Edward VII in 1910, and then King George V from 1911. This showed that Australia was still part of the British Commonwealth. But the back, the reverse, was all Aussie. The coins featured the Australian coat of arms. This design includes a kangaroo and an emu supporting a shield. Seeing those animals on the money was a powerful symbol of national identity. It was a way of saying, we are part of the Commonwealth, but we are also our own country with our own unique heritage. These sterling silver coins were used all over Australia for decades. People used them for everything, from buying groceries to paying for a tram ticket. They were the workhorses of the Australian economy. Grandparents gave them to their grandkids. Soldiers carried them in their pockets during 2 world wars. These coins were part of everyday life. They are a physical link to the past, a time when Australia was growing and defining itself on the world stage. When you hold one of these old silver coins, you're holding a piece of that history. It's tangible, it's real, and that's what makes it so cool. Every coin system has its little guys and its big guys. In Australia's pre-decimal era, the smallest silver coin was the threepence. Americans might know this as a threepence. This little coin was tiny, smaller than a modern US dime. Because it was so small, people often called it a tizzy. It was made of 92.5% silver until 1945. It was a useful coin for buying small things, like a newspaper or a handful of candy. You needed 4 of them to make a shilling. Despite its small size, it was an important part of daily commerce for over 50 years. These tiny silver coins have a special charm. Because they were so small, they were easy to lose. Finding a well-preserved one from the early years like a 1911 or 1912 can be a real treat for a collector. The design on the back was the Australian coat of arms, just like the bigger coins. But cramming all that detail onto such a tiny surface was an art in itself. After 1937, the design was changed to 3 stalks of wheat, which was a bit simpler and easier to see. These little silver coins circulated right up until 1964, just before Australia changed its whole currency system. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the big boy, the Australian crown. This was a large, heavy silver coin, similar in size to an old US silver dollar. It was worth 5 shillings. The crown was only minted for 2 years, in 1937 and 1938. It was issued to celebrate the coronation of King George VI. The coin was a real showpiece. It was big, beautiful, and made of sterling silver. The front had a portrait of the king, and the back featured a large, detailed image of the imperial state crown. It was a coin that felt important in your hand. However, the Australian crown was not very popular with the public. It was too big and heavy to carry around comfortably in a pocket. People preferred using a 5 shilling banknote instead. As a result, not many were used in circulation. Most of them were saved by people as souvenirs of the coronation. Because it was only made for 2 years and wasn't widely used, the crown is now a key coin for collectors. The 1938 crown is scarcer than the 1937. Finding a high-grade example of either one is a major goal for anyone serious about collecting Australian coins. As the 20th century moved on, Australia's coins started to change. The early coins with the coat of arms were great, but people wanted more variety. They wanted designs that celebrated other aspects of Australian life and culture. So, in the late 1930s, the government decided to give the coins a makeover. The famous animal designs that many people associate with old Australian money were introduced. This was a big moment. It was another step in creating a distinct visual identity for the nation's currency, moving further away from the purely British style. The new designs were fantastic. The florin, which was worth 2 shillings, featured a more detailed version of the coat of arms with the kangaroo and emu. The shilling received a design of a merino ram's head. This was a nod to Australia's massive wool industry, which was the backbone of the economy for a long time. The sixpence got the classic coat of arms, and the threepence, as I mentioned, got the 3 stalks of wheat. These designs were created by a man named George Kruger Gray, and they are considered classic works of numismatic art. They were quintessentially Australian. These designs remained on the coins for decades, with one major change happening after World War II. The cost of silver was going up. It was becoming too expensive to make coins out of 92.5% sterling silver. So, in 1946, Australia followed Britain and reduced the silver content of its coins. The new coins were made of only 50% silver, with the rest being copper and other metals. You can actually see the difference. The older sterling silver coins have a brighter, whiter shine. The newer 50% silver coins look a little duller and can tarnish differently over time. For collectors, this change in silver content is a big deal. It creates a clear dividing line in the pre-decimal series. Many people try to collect a full set of the sterling silver issues and then a full set of the 50% silver issues. This period, from 1910 to 1964, offers a huge variety for collectors. You have different monarchs on the front, different designs on the back, and 2 different silver purities. It's a rich and fascinating era of coinage that tells the story of Australia's journey through the first half of the 20th century. By the 1960s, the world was changing, and Australia's money was about to change with it. The old British system of pounds, shillings, and pence was complicated. You had 12 pence in a shilling and 20 shillings in a pound. Doing calculations was a pain, honestly. Most of the world was moving to a decimal system where everything is based on units of 10. It was just simpler and more efficient. The Australian government decided it was time to make the switch. This was a massive undertaking. It meant replacing every single coin and banknote in the country. At the same time, there was another problem: the price of silver. It was still climbing. By the early 1960s, the value of the silver in the coins was getting very close to the face value of the coins themselves. This is a dangerous situation for a government. If the silver in a florin is worth more than a florin, what do people do? They melt the coins down. The government knew this was coming. It was no longer economical to use silver for circulating coins. The decision was made to stop using silver altogether and switch to cheaper, more durable metals like copper and nickel. The government planned the changeover for years. They called it Decimal Day. They had to educate the entire public on how the new system would work. There were TV commercials, radio jingles, and posters everywhere. A cartoon character named Dollar Bill was created to explain the new currency to people in a friendly way. The big day was set for February 14th, 1966. On that day, the old pounds, shillings, and pence would be replaced by new dollars and cents. 2 of the old shillings would equal one of the new 10-cent pieces. It was a clean, logical switch. When Decimal Day arrived, it was the end of an era for Australian silver coins. The old florins, shillings, sixpence and threepence were officially on their way out. People were encouraged to turn them in at banks and exchange them for the new decimal coins. Millions of these silver coins were returned and eventually melted down by the government. This is why some dates are harder to find than others. A huge amount of Australia's silver coinage history was lost to the melting pot. But for collectors, this just makes the coins that survived even more special. When Decimal Day hit on February 14, 1966, Australia was flooded with brand new coins. The designs were modern and exciting. They were created by a man named Stuart Devlin, and they featured iconic Australian animals. The new 1 cent coin had a feather tail glider. The 2 cent had a frill-necked lizard. The 5 cent had an echidna. The 10 cent had a lyrebird. And the 20 cent had a platypus. These designs were an instant hit. They were beautiful, educational, and completely Australian. It was a currency that the nation could be proud of. But there was one surprise in the new lineup. The government also introduced a 50-cent coin. And unlike the other new coins, which were made of a copper-nickel alloy, the very first 1966 50-cent piece was round and made of 80% silver. It was a beautiful, large coin. The government thought it would be a prestigious addition to the new currency. However, they made a big miscalculation. The price of silver continued to skyrocket. Very quickly, the silver content in the 1966 50-cent coin became worth more than 50 cents. People aren't stupid. They realized these coins were worth more as silver than as money, so they started hoarding them. The coins disappeared from circulation almost as fast as the mint could make them. It was a repeat of the old problem, but this time it happened in just a few months. The government had to act fast. They stopped minting the round silver 50-cent piece after just 1 year. Over 36 million were made, but they vanished from public view. Today, they are one of the most common and affordable ways for people to own a piece of Australian silver history. After the 1966 silver 50-cent fiasco, the government redesigned the coin. In 1969, they reintroduced the 50-cent piece, but this time it was different. It was no longer round. It was a unique 12-sided or dodecagonal shape. And it was no longer made of silver. It was made of the same copper nickel as the smaller coins. This new shape made it easy to distinguish by touch. This marked the definitive end of silver in Australia's circulating currency. From that point on, if you wanted a new Australian silver coin, you would have to look somewhere else. Just because silver disappeared from circulating coins didn't mean it was gone for good. Far from it, actually. Australia's mints, particularly the Perth Mint and the Royal Australian Mint, realised there was a huge global market for silver coins made for investors and collectors. These are called bullion coins. They aren't meant to be spent at the grocery store. Their value is based on their silver content, plus a premium for their design and collectability. So, in the 1990s, Australia jumped back into the silver game in a big way. The most famous of these modern silver coins is the Australian Kookaburra series. It was first released by the Perth Mint in 1990. It's a 1 troy ounce coin made of 99.9% pure silver and later 99.99%. The cool thing about the Kookaburra series is that the design changes every single year. Each year features a new image of the famous Australian bird known for its laughing call. This makes them highly collectible. People don't just buy one, they try to collect the Kookaburra from every single year. It's a brilliant marketing strategy, and the coins are beautiful. Building on the success of the Kookaburra, the Perth Mint introduced other popular silver bullion series. In 1999, they launched the Lunar series, with designs based on the Chinese zodiac calendar. Each year features a different animal, like the dragon, tiger, or rabbit. These are incredibly popular, especially in Asia. Then came the Koala series in 2007 and the Kangaroo series in 2016. Each one is made of pure silver and features a new design each year. These coins are known around the world for their high quality and stunning artwork. These modern bullion coins come in all sorts of sizes. You can buy a standard 1 ounce coin, but they also make bigger ones. You can get 2 ounce, 5 ounce, 10 ounce, and even 1 kilogram silver coins. That's over 2 pounds of pure silver. These massive coins are impressive to see and hold. They show how far Australian coinage has come. From punching holes in Spanish dollars to minting giant, high-purity silver masterpieces, Australia has become a world leader in modern numismatics. It's a testament to their craftsmanship and their smart business sense. So, why should anyone, especially an American collector, care about Australian silver coins? For me, it comes down to the story. Every coin tells a story, and Australian coins tell a really good one. It's a story of a new nation trying to find its way. It's about ingenuity, like the holy dollar and dump. It's about national pride, like when they put the kangaroo and emu on their coins for the first time. It's a story of change, like the move from sterling silver to decimal currency. When you collect these coins, you're collecting chapters of that story. The variety is another big draw. You can choose to specialize in so many different areas. Maybe you love the raw history of the early sterling silver coins from 1910 to 1945. Or maybe you're interested in the post-war 50% silver issues. You could try to build a complete set of the beautiful animal designs from the 1930s. Or you can focus on the modern bullion, trying to get a kookaburra from every year. There's something for every type of collector and every budget. You can start with a common 1966 round 50-cent piece, or aim for a rare and valuable 1937 crown. For American collectors, Australian coins offer something different and exciting. They have a familiar feel, with the portraits of British monarchs, but the reverse designs are exotic and unique. Learning about the merino ram or the lyrebird adds a new layer of fun to the hobby. And because the history is all there in the 20th century, the information is accessible. It's not like trying to decipher a Roman coin from 2,000 years ago. It's a complete and fascinating history that you can hold in your hand. It's a tangible connection to a country on the other side of the world. In the end, collecting Australian silver coins is about owning a piece of a legacy. These coins were held by soldiers, farmers, and city dwellers. They were part of the fabric of Australian life for generations. They represent the economic and cultural journey of a nation. Whether it's a tiny 3p or a giant 1 kilo kookaburra, each coin is a work of art and a piece of history. And in my business, things that have both art and history are the things that have real, lasting value. You never really own a piece of history. You just take care of it for the next generation, and that's a pretty cool thing to be a part of.